Now, I'm not actually making this video out of free will. I'm making it
by order of the Peaky Blinders.
Because yes, season 5 is off to a bang. The three brothers are back. Shit, spoilers. The Shelby clan are back, but they've picked a fight with the Billy Boys, who appear out of nowhere and shoot Abraham Gold and then crucify and shoot his son, leaving everyone wondering,
I don't know who the fuck Billy Boys are.
But to supplement Arthur's subsequent explanation, I went away and did some research into the actual historical Billy Boys and who they were. So in this video I'll be asking the question, who were the Billy Boys who are terrorizing the Peaky Blinders? So a good place to start looking for clues about the Billy Boys is actually in the song that they sing as they approach Abraham Gold and his son. And these are the lyrics to the song, which has become known as the Billy Boys, and I'd like to highlight two of the words in this song which are particularly telling. Now the first is the word Fenian, describing the Fenian blood, and actually Fenian has been used a fair amount in the show Peaky Blinders by Detective Inspector Campbell beforehand, and it's actually a derogatory term for Irish Republicans, or more specifically Irishmen, especially Catholic Irishmen. And it's actually for this reason that this song, which was sometimes sung by fans of the football club Rangers in Scotland, as I will get onto, why it has now been banned from being singing there, because Fenian is today seen as a derogatory term for Irish and specifically Irish Catholics. Now the other word that I've highlighted here is Brigton, and Brigton is actually the Scots form of an English area called Bridgeton, which is an area in the city of Glasgow in Scotland. By the 19th century, Glasgow, like much of Scotland, was very strongly Protestant, although during the middle of the 19th century, especially after the 1840s, when the Irish potato famine hit Ireland, lots of immigrants from Ireland came to Glasgow to settle and to find work, as well as in other industrial parts of Scotland. Although of course this then flooded the already very poor and working class industrial areas in Glasgow with new workers from Ireland, and so naturally this bred resentment with the population that was already there, as well as of course the religious divide, being that the Irish were very strongly and largely Catholic, whereas the population already in Glasgow at the time were Protestant, and with a competition for jobs and a hard economic situation, you can see this going badly. The Protestants were worried they were going to spread papistry and revolutionary ideas as well as steal their jobs, and the Catholics felt increasingly marginalised and unable to get jobs due to discrimination, and so formed a bunker mentality, as well as forming several sectarianly divided razor gangs. These gangs often had violent encounters at football matches, especially after 1888, in which the first Old Firm derby was played between Celtic, which was a team made up of largely Catholic and Irish supporters, and Rangers, which was made up of the Protestant and originally Scottish inhabitants of the city. And to this day, the rivalry between Celtic and Rangers in the city of Glasgow and beyond in the diaspora of both the Scots Protestants and also the Scots-Irish and in Ireland itself is one of the bloodiest and biggest rivalries in footballing history. Now the name Billy Boys could come from several different sources. Now one of them is from King William III, who was the King of England, Scotland and Ireland. But where was he from again? Oh, I remember. Just as with William's Protestant supporters in Ireland, and today still in Northern Ireland, the Billy Boys also formed these marching bands that we see actually playing in the most recent episode, marching off towards going and trying to find Abraham Gold in the series. But this is actually also based on historical truths, that they went to Ireland and took part during the 12th Orange Men marches, and that they kind of took on a military form with these big bands and would march through Catholic areas screaming insults at the Catholics living there, and then the Catholic gangs would come out and attack them, and that's kind of how they would fight these pitched battles in the streets of Glasgow. What's probably a more likely origin of the name the Billy Boys is their leader, who was called Billy Fullerton. And Billy Fullerton is actually quite an interesting character, and he really got involved in the gang scene because of football. Again, he was as a teenager playing a game against a Catholic team. He himself was a Protestant, and he happened to score the winning goal. Now normally that's quite a good thing, you know, it's a game of football, you score the winning goal, you're happy. But in Glasgow, that meant that he was attacked by a gang of Catholic kids who then, you know, cut up his face and all of this kind of thing, and then he vowed revenge against them and formed the Brigton Boys, as they were called, and they would colloquially become known as the Billy Boys, and I think this is named after him. He actually also later went on to found the Glasgow branch of the Ku Klux Klan, and was also involved with the British Union of Fascists. And I think this is really the show's attempt at portraying Billy Fullerton. Now, I realise in the show he's called McGovern or something like this, and not Billy Fullerton, but I think he's kind of the leader that they're portraying, and I think a lot of the things that he does and the way he acts are reminiscent of the accounts that we have of Billy Fullerton. Now, as I said, he's also involved in the British Union of Fascists, and he actually created a unit or a local branch of this organisation in Glasgow, and we hear from Arthur also saying that they provide muscle for fascist rallies. So one of the big tactics that fascists used in the 1930s was going and breaking up the political events of other parties, especially the communists. So Hitler did this in Germany, Mussolini did this in Italy, and so they would basically be the ones who went in and would beat up the other politicians and break up the rallies and protect their own rallies from the communist gangs, for example. This is of course going to make things very interesting for Tommy, because they are then working for Sir Oswald Moseley, who would form the British Union of Fascists. Actually, I think it formed in 1932, so it's not happened yet in the show, but they're clearly talking about it. In this scene in the wheat field when they're shooting, they were talking about it as well. So that's going to be interesting to see how he maneuvers that, because obviously Oswald Moseley and Billy Fullerton historically were working on the same side. They were both fascists, whereas I'm not sure what Tommy's going to do in this situation, but I'm sure the BBC won't be making Tommy a fascist, or I think his approval ratings will drop rather significantly, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Now as well, there's mention of the Ulster Volunteer Force, that they have ties to the UVF, and initially I thought this was a mistake, because the UVF actually only formed in the later Troubles. So in the 1960s, when the Troubles kicked off in Northern Ireland, they formed as paramilitary group in Northern Ireland, serving the Protestant interest. They said they were serving the Protestant interest and fighting back against the IRA and the Catholic minority there. But actually, I looked into this, and there are references to the Ulster Militia, which was essentially a similar thing, but in the wake of the 1916 Easter Rising. They also fought during the Irish War of Independence, and then afterwards in Northern Ireland against Republican elements there. And they are sometimes referred to as the UVF, although the UVF, the organisation that everyone thinks of when you say UVF, wasn't formed until later. So what actually ended up happening to the Billy Boys in Glasgow? Well, the violence in the city got so bad that they called over a special chief constable, Percy Sillitoe. Now, Percy Sillitoe was famous because he had actually sorted out the very bad gang situation in the city of Sheffield in the years before. And when he was called in, he basically employed the tactic of you can't make an omelette without breaking a few eggs, and basically hired lots of really strong, big, bulky men from the Highlands to come into Glasgow, got them in uniform, and essentially they became called the biggest gang in the world. So the idea was that if there was a street fight with these gang members, the police would always come out on top because they had more bigger and stronger men fighting the gangs, and this seems to have worked. He also employed civilians to work in a police capacity, so he gathered a lot of intelligence on the various gangs in Glasgow, as well as then employing these wireless radios between police who had before just used police boxes, which wasn't the most efficient system. And actually the reason that police in many countries wear this, which is called the Sillitoe tartan, is because of Sir Percy Sillitoe, because he was so successful in stopping the razor gangs in Glasgow, and that's why they wear this to this day. Enlistment in these razor gangs also declined in Glasgow's Protestant population because they simply started to join the Orange Order, which still has a very large following in Glasgow to this day. Alright everyone, so thank you very much for watching this video on the historical Billy Boys and who they actually were. So I hope you have enjoyed this one. I'm going to look at some more kind of history related to this new season of Peaky Blinders. I think I'm going to make a video about the fascists in Britain as well, the British Union of Fascists, because they seem to be an important player in this season, as well as perhaps looking at some of the stuff going on in Ireland at the moment, because I have a feeling that the IRA are going to be playing a role in what's going to be going down in the season, as well as possibly the socialists and things like this. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed looking into this, and I hope you'll tune in again soon. So I have been Hilbert. If you haven't subscribed yet, then I would recommend you do so. If you could drop me a like as well, that would really help me out. And this has been The History, so I'll see you all again very soon.